actually the third time I've tried to record this video, because each other time I haven't been able to say what I want to say to my satisfaction. I even tried to write a blog post about it this morning. That turned into a gigantic tour de force of, I don't know, confusion, let's put it that way. Last week we were entertaining rumors of Wildstar going free to play based on the fact that they were pulling the box off of store shelves. This is the same move that predicated the switch for the Elder Scrolls Online from free to play to, from subscription with box cost to buy to play, which means buy the box and then play without a subscription. Here in the West, I'm not sure exactly where, but at least in the US, they weren't going to go so quietly. So what NCSoft did was reduce the price of the box cost and also try to sweeten the deal by adding an incentive that when you add your key to your account, you'll get not only 30 free days, but also a shot at one of 3 special rewards, but only for the box. You can't get this if you buy it digitally. So they're obviously trying to sell off their remaining physical inventory, which of course leads to people speculating that they're gearing up to go buy to play or free to play. So I bought a box copy last Thursday and got the Snarflinx mount, which looks like a gigantic anime cat that swallows you and floats around. That's how you travel with this thing. So I couldn't remember how to play my elder character, who is, the ripe old age of 25, level 25. So I, did the poor man's tutorial, which is to start over a new character to, relearn the concepts. And this time I made, I had 2 Dominion and 1 Exile. So this time I made an Orin, which dropped me off in a different starting section that I'd never done before, which was kind of cool. So I like it when games do that. They separate the starting areas so you don't always end up, redoing exactly the same content to start. The problem is, of course, that there was no one around. When I first loaded in with the new character, I was on top of one other person, and I quickly lost track of that person as we, went our separate ways. I chose Explorers, so I immediately went off to try and find one of the locations that was part of my Explorer profession. And it wasn't until last night, which was a whole 4 days after I started, that I finally found a zone that had more than one person in it. And, I got to thinking, man, this really sucks, because, whether you like it or not, Wildstar is a solid game. It's solid. It works well. I think it's got a lot of things that you can do. I don't think if you're just not the pretentious type, I think there's a lot you can find, enjoyable there. But it just didn't catch on. It didn't catch on. And I was thinking, this really sucks because I'm a new character here. I'm not going to be able to do any of this group content. I'm not even talking about dungeons or anything like that. I'm talking about those little job boards that you find every here and there that require a group of 2+ to take down one of the world bosses or something like that. I'm not going to be able to do that unless I out-level it and come back later, and the chances of me doing that are very, very slim to none. So what can I do? Well, I can just solo the content until I can get to the point where my subscription expires, or they go free to play, and we get an influx of players, which is exactly what I hope will happen if they do, in fact, go free or buy to play. course, this morning I was thinking, why? What happened? What happened to poor old Wildstar? Where, at launch they were adding servers to deal with the influx of players, but now they're down to 2 mega servers, a PvE and a PvP. A mega server, of course, is not just a single server that equates to a single server that they had at launch. It's, it's a virtual kind of contraption that allows you to move people, where they need to be in order to load balance the server. But still, the mega server I don't think it's probably as big as the entire complement of servers that Wildstar had in effect at the point at which they stopped adding them. So if they had 30 or 40 servers that they had added before they stopped it, adding new ones, I don't think that the mega server is the equivalent of 30 to 40 servers. I think it's probably significantly less, which means, of course, that there are, nowhere near the amount of players in the game right now that there were at launch, at the point where they felt that they had enough servers to accommodate the people that were coming in. I don't know how many people they actually have playing this game, because they're not at the start. They're not at the starting area. They're not in the orange starting area, let's put it that way. So where are they? And this is where it kind of comes to the point of, I don't know, and I hate to say it in this way, but blaming the victim. I suspect that anyone who's still playing Wildstar is probably stuffed up at the end game. That's probably where the majority of people are, if they're anywhere at all. With, of course, there are people interspersed throughout the rest of the game, but Wildstar was always marketed as a game for old school end game content connoisseurs. People who have fond memories of vanilla World of Warcraft. Supposedly, people who are nostalgic for the days of raiding in vanilla Warcraft, World of Warcraft, with attunement, where you had to jump through all these hoops in order to get yourself access to these raids, and so on and so forth. And the game Wildstar was built around providing that exact experience. Actually, come to think of it, that was even worse of an idea than I actually originally thought. See, the original thought was that when you do something like that, you are going after a very specific and narrow demographic. Now, the bulk of the game, the PvE experience up to the level cap, is pretty much open to anybody, but you gotta have, I think that even people who are interested in doing solo PvE, look for end-game content maybe as a goal, right? So maybe they're not interested in raiding, maybe they just want to get to whatever other content the end-game content represents, I guess. It's a goal. It's something for them to work for. And maybe a lot of people didn't feel that the way, what the developers and the designers and the talking heads and all of the promotional videos were telling them, it just wasn't for them. So, the Alliance of Awesome kind of all just vacated the premises like cockroaches in a lit room, almost at exactly the same time. And I think it was probably the 30-day cap when people had to start paying for it. Everyone's like, well, it was fun while it lasted, but I don't feel like paying for it, so I'll see you later, and thanks for all the fish. I can only imagine that was the exact case for a lot of people who really thought the game was okay, but didn't really either A, want to pay for it, or B, really didn't feel that the game spoke to them. That the designers and the developers, for all of their pimping of, this is the end game content game, it just wasn't for them. They were speaking to a totally different demographic. So maybe anybody who's really been in Wildstar all this time is crammed up, at the end game content. I don't know. I don't have that information. I don't have those numbers. I'm not at the end game, so I can't take a census. I can only imagine that if there is anybody in the game, that is probably where they are, because they're not in the lower level. So what's the point? Well, aside from the misplaced PR, I think that unfortunately the entire design of Wildstar is just based on a flawed premise that there are more than enough people who really want a vanilla WoW endgame experience to keep the game afloat. And I don't think that I'm, unique in coming to that revelation. I think I've seen it firsthand right now, as opposed to people who, might have come to that conclusion because they heard a friend of a friend who, knew somebody who once heard on the internet that there's nobody in the starting zones in Wildstar. I don't know. I don't want to shit on Wildstar because I'm liking it. I've always liked it. It's just one of those games that just kind of, I felt that it would have been a lot better with a cohesive, coherent, consistent group, as opposed to, a solo leveling experience. You can do it. I think it would just be a hell of a lot better in a group. But, if the game doesn't speak to you, or if the people who are speaking to you are not speaking your language, then I can't fault you for not sticking around, really. So, what about all this content that exists prior to the end game? I mean, I always cringe whenever I hear the phrase, the game begins at the level cap, because why don't you just build a game at the level cap? I mean, seriously. Plus, it also makes light of all of the hard work that the rest of the team did to get players to the level cap, right? All that hard work, all the art and design and audio and everything that went behind. They're basically saying, yeah, that stuff's shit, because, what you really want is the end game, but you have to suffer through the rest of this crap. Unfortunately, that's kind of, I say it that way mainly because I'm frustrated with the state that I'm in right now, because I won't be able to do any of this group content. This is content, these world bosses where you need like 2+ people, all right? If you want to do them at level appropriate times, you're screwed. So that means there's content right now that was designed to be obsolete. All of this, content was designed to be obsolete. If you're telling the players that the best part of the game is at the end, and you're not telling the players that, hey, the entire game is awesome, what incentive do you have in front of players for them to re-roll, for them to, invite people in, or for them to just even go back, really, I guess? You can call it, I guess, the curse. It's really probably the biggest sin, I guess, of a theme park game, aside from, the whole idea of something that holds your hand through it. But, it's a one-way ticket, basically, from the starting zone all the way to the end game content. There is no need for you to pause and turn around and revisit old content or old zones. World of Warcraft had to basically trash their original game in order to get people to go back. I mean, once you get to the point where you've created enough alts to experience all of the starting content, and you've gotten those alts all the way up to the end game, what the hell's the point of going back again, right? And if you've turned people off because you've been selling it as something that they're not interested in, or people have heard that it's a ghost town, I think, unfortunately, I think NCSoft painted themselves into a corner with this one. I'm really hoping that they do go free or buy to play, and I hope that they enjoy the same kind of response that other games have enjoyed when they go free or buy to play, which is to see a massive influx of players. I think they would probably, at this state, based on what I've personally seen, and not necessarily of any assumption of the overall population, I would think that they would probably benefit much more greatly from a free-to-play as opposed to a buy-to-play. Because if they went free-to-play, people would be in there, bam, day one. No restrictions, no nothing. If they went buy-to-play, I think people who have right now a sour or incorrect, assumption that the game sucks, wouldn't drop the cash. Even at $20, which is what it's at now, I don't think people would be enticed to buy the box, even if it was subscriptionless. So I really hope that if they do go something to play, that they do go totally free to play, because I really like to see other people, back in this game. And the thing is that, putting other things aside, putting this sale of it as an end game heavy content game, if you think about it in terms of just playing with your friends and having fun up till that point, then I think you can get a lot out of it. And I don't think focusing, if you're not an end game player, I don't really think focusing on or worrying about the game as an end game is really going to do you any favors. So I really hope that they do go free to play. I'd like to see more people in there, because I think it's still a fun game.